Part 1. The workshop smelled of grease and cold metal, scents that had become Jack Callahan's only comfort in the hours before dawn. 4 in the morning in January, Montana meant darkness thick enough to drown in, and the single fluorescent tube overhead buzzed like something dying. He'd given up on sleep around 2, the nightmares chasing him from the narrow bed in the back room where he pretended to rest. The welding mask sat on the workbench beside an unopened bottle of Jim Beam, 3 years of sobriety staring at 3 fingers of oblivion. His hands trembled as he reached for the mask instead of the glass, muscle memory choosing the safer addiction. The Harley frame in front of him was the 4th he'd started this winter, and the 4th he'd probably never finish. Unfinished projects lined the walls of the shop like headstones in a graveyard of good intentions. A 72 Sportster missing its engine, a fat boy with no front fork, a custom chopper that would never feel wind because the man who'd commissioned it had put a gun in his mouth before Jack could complete the build. That one haunted him most, not because he'd known the guy well, but because he understood the mathematics of despair that led a man to choose silence over sound. Jack pulled the mask down and fired up the torch, blue flame hissing to life. The first touch of heat to metal brought that familiar chemical smell, ozone and burning flux, and for maybe 30 seconds the world narrowed to this single point of light and purpose. Then his hands started shaking worse, and he had to kill the flame before he ruined the weld. The mask came off. His reflection stared back from the darkened window, a ghost of a man at 49 who looked 60. Gray streaked through his beard where it had been solid brown in Syria. Lines carved deep around eyes that had seen too much and slept too little. The photo on the wall caught the fluorescent light, the only decoration in this cave of half-built machines. Lieutenant Michael Hayes grinned out from the frame, arms slung around a younger Jack Callahan, who still believed in things like purpose and redemption. Syria, 2016. Both of them dusty and alive, unaware that in 3 weeks one would be dead and the other would spend the rest of his life wishing he was. Jack's voice came out raw in the empty shop. "I'm sorry, Mike. I'm still here and you're not. It should have been me." The words hit the concrete floor and died there. No absolution, waiting in the silence. 8 years of the same prayer, and God or the universe or whatever ran this cosmic joke never answered. Jack picked up a rag, wiped grease from his hands that would never come fully clean, and checked his phone out of habit. 3:17 in the morning. Text from Pops Morrison sent at 10 the previous night. Church meeting. 10 a.m. Be there. Jack deleted it without responding. He'd been deleting Pops' messages for 3 months, ever since the old man had started pushing him to get back out there and stop hiding in this shop like a coward. Korean war vets didn't understand that some wounds never healed, that some men were too broken for the glue of brotherhood and purpose to hold together. Pops meant well, but meaning well didn't chase away the nightmares or stop the shaking or fill the hole where Jack's soul used to be. He reached for the bottle instead of the torch this time, fingers wrapping around glass that promised temporary peace. 3 years sober, 1,095 days of white-knuckling through each sunrise. The seal hadn't been broken, but the temptation sat there patient as a sniper, knowing eventually the target would step into the crosshairs. Jack's sponsor, a barrel-chested Nam vet named Carl, had told him the wanting never fully disappeared. It just learned to wait quieter. Carl was probably asleep right now, dreaming regular dreams, his demons domesticated by 40 years of sobriety and grandchildren, and a life that meant something. Jack set the bottle down untouched and walked to the small bathroom in the corner, splashing cold water on his face that did nothing to wash away the exhaustion. The mirror showed a stranger, someone who'd stolen Jack Callahan's face and worn it down to nothing. 6'3" and 240, most of it still muscle from the habits of a soldier who couldn't quite quit training for a war that ended years ago. But the eyes gave it away. Dead eyes, survivor's eyes, the kind of eyes that had watched a better man bleed out in the sand and done nothing but make promises he'd never kept. The water dripped from his beard onto the sink, each drop a small surrender to gravity and time. Jack dried his face and checked his phone again. 3:22, still dark, still alone, still breathing when Michael wasn't. The fundamental injustice that colored every moment of every day since Kandahar province in the autumn of 2016 when the world exploded and rearranged itself into before and after. He walked back to the workbench and picked up the photo, studying Michael's face for the thousandth time, looking for something he'd never found. The man had been 36 in this picture, 8 years younger than Jack was now, and already he'd had the kind of presence that made enlisted men follow him into hell. Natural leader, the citation had said, uncommonly brave, made the ultimate sacrifice. All the sterile military language that translated to, this man is dead because he was good and you're alive because you were lucky, and don't ever forget which one deserved to survive. Jack set the photo down before the weight of it crushed his chest. He grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door, steel-toed boots that had walked through 3 countries' worth of sand and blood, and stepped out into the Montana cold that bit like teeth. His breath fogged in the darkness. The shop sat on the edge of Pittsburgh, a name that meant nothing to most people, a town of 8,000 nestled in the mountains where a man could disappear if he worked at it hard enough. Jack had been working at it for 8 years, becoming gradually invisible even to himself. His truck sat in the gravel lot, a '98 Chevy that burned oil and refused to die no matter how badly Jack maintained it. Some things were too stubborn to quit. He climbed in, fired up the engine that coughed to life on the 3rd try, and sat there watching his breath cloud the windshield while the heater groaned. No plan, no destination. Just the familiar ritual of running from ghosts that lived in his own skull. The clock on the dash read 3:41 when his phone buzzed again. Jack almost ignored it, but some instinct made him check. Text from Diesel, the Steel Brotherhood VP, sent to the club group chat. A video link. A message. This is messed up, poor kid. Jack's thumb hovered over the link. He'd been avoiding the group chat for weeks, the brothers checking in on him with messages he couldn't answer because what was there to say? I'm fine was a lie. I'm drowning would just make them worry. Better to stay silent and let them think he was managing. But something in Diesel's message carried weight. The kind of tone that said, this mattered. He clicked the link. The video loaded slow on the truck's spotty connection, buffering in fits and starts. When it finally played, Jack's entire world compressed into the screen. A parking lot at night, security camera footage, grainy but clear enough, a kid sitting on a bench, maybe 16, hood up, eating something from a paper bag. Then 4 other kids approached, phones out, already laughing before anything happened. The lead kid snatched the bag, and Jack watched the scene unfold with the sick inevitability of a car crash you can't stop. The kid on the bench tried to communicate, hands moving in signs Jack didn't understand. The bullies mocked him, exaggerated gestures, cruelty worn like armor. They pushed him, kicked something that looked like a skateboard into the street, dumped his food on the ground, and stomped it flat while the kid broke down crying, silent tears streaming down a face the camera caught in painful detail. Jack's coffee mug slipped from his hand. It shattered on the truck's floor, hot liquid spreading across the rubber mat, but he didn't notice, couldn't notice, because that face, that jaw, the way the kid held himself even while crying, straight-backed and refusing to curl in on himself despite the humiliation. Jack had seen that exact posture before, in a field hospital in Kandahar, when a man with shrapnel in his spine fought death for 47 minutes and used his last breath to make Jack swear an oath. The kid's features were older, teenage instead of the 8-year-old boy Jack remembered from Michael's wallet photo. But the resemblance hit like shrapnel. Those eyes, Michael's eyes, the same stubborn set to the shoulders that said the world might beat him down, but it wouldn't break him. Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt, knuckles white in the dashboard light. Ryan, Michael's boy. The kid would be 16 now, Jack realized. Doing math he should have done years ago. 16 and deaf and alone because his father died with his hand in Jack's jacket, pulling him close enough to whisper final words that had been burning holes in Jack's chest ever since. Promise me. Look after them, Kate and Ryan. Promise. Jack had promised, had sworn on everything sacred and profane that he'd take care of Michael's family, would be there for the widow and the boy who couldn't hear the world's cruelty but could sure as hell feel it. And then he'd gone to the funeral, stood in the rain while they played taps and folded the flag. Held Kate's hand while she sobbed, and 8-year-old Ryan watched with confused eyes that didn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. After that, Jack had sent Christmas cards, called twice, then once, then not at all. Told himself Kate had moved on, that she didn't need some broken veteran cluttering up her life with his nightmares and his guilt. Told himself the boy would be fine, that kids were resilient, that time healed wounds. Told himself 1,000 lies while he hid in this shop and built motorcycles he'd never finish and fought the nightly battle against a bottle he'd eventually lose. The video looped automatically, playing the attack again. Jack watched the lead bully's face, 17 or 18, cocky in the way of kids who'd never been truly tested. The kind of punk who thought strength meant making others weak. Who probably had a father somewhere who taught him that dominance was the only currency that mattered. Jack had seen 100 versions of this kid in the service. The ones who talked the loudest until the shooting started, then suddenly discovered they weren't quite as tough as they'd imagined. His phone showed the video had been posted to some local news site, River's Edge Diner, Riverside, Montana. Jack's hands were shaking again, but not from the usual reasons. This was different. This was rage and shame and purpose, all braided together into something that felt almost like being alive. Riverside, 3 hours south. He'd avoided that town for 8 years despite knowing Kate and Ryan lived there, afraid of facing the family he'd abandoned, afraid of seeing his failure reflected in their eyes. But that calculation had just changed. That video had been posted yesterday according to the timestamp. 24 hours of Ryan dealing with whatever came after public humiliation, whatever cruelty followed when the whole town watched you break. Jack's phone buzzed, text from Pops, like the old man had some kind of radar. "Did you see it?" Jack typed back before he could think better of it. "Saw it. That's Hayes' kid." 3 dots appeared, Pops typing. Then, "I know, I was there. Witnessed the whole thing. We need to talk. Church meeting, 10 a.m. Don't make me come drag you out of that shop." Jack checked the dashboard clock. 4:13 in the morning. 6 hours until Pops' meeting. He could make it to Riverside in 3 if he left now. But showing up at Kate's door at 7 in the morning, during 8 years of silence, seemed like the kind of play that started wrong and got worse. Better to wait. Talk to Pops. Figure out an approach that didn't involve his guilt and rage leading the charge. He put the truck in gear and drove. Not back to the shop, but out onto Highway 287, heading south even though he'd told himself to wait. The road was empty, just Jack and the darkness and the yellow line unreeling beneath headlights that cut through mountain fog. He drove on autopilot, mind churning through 8 years of failure, and the moment in Syria when everything changed. The IED had been buried in the road, one of hundreds that insurgents planted and the army tried to find and occasionally missed. Their convoy had been returning from a supply run, routine patrol through a sector that had been quiet for weeks. Jack had been driving, Michael riding shotgun, talking about his plans for when they got home. Ryan's 9th birthday was coming up. Michael wanted to take the kid camping, teach him to read the stars by feel since he couldn't hear the night sounds. Had this whole speech planned about how silence wasn't absence, but presence of a different kind. How Ryan needed to understand he wasn't missing out on the world, just experiencing it differently. Then the world exploded. Jack's Humvee flipped, rolled twice, came to rest on its side with him pinned in the driver's seat. Legs trapped, blood in his eyes. Gunfire starting up as insurgents moved in to finish what the bomb had started. Michael had been thrown clear in the blast, should have run for cover, should have followed training and doctrine, and every instinct that said save yourself first. Instead, he ran back, came through gunfire that tore up the sand around his boots, grabbed the Humvee's frame with both hands, and lifted. Impossible physics, adrenaline and desperation making a man briefly superhuman. The vehicle shifted just enough for Jack to drag himself free, crawling through his own blood and Michael's sweat. Then the RPG hit. Shrapnel ripped through Michael's chest, punched through Kevlar like it wasn't there. He went down hard, Jack catching him before his head hit the road. More gunfire, screaming for a medic. Michael's blood hot and red and spreading across sand that drank it down without mercy. His hands found Jack's jacket, pulled him close enough to smell copper and cordite and the particular scent of a man dying. "Promise me." Jack had promised. What else could he do? Michael's eyes were already fading, life running out faster than the medics could respond. So Jack swore on his own life that he'd look after Kate and Ryan, would be there for them the way Michael couldn't be. And Michael had smiled, actually smiled, like that promise was enough. Like he could die in peace, knowing his family wouldn't be alone. Then he died. Jack had kept performing CPR long after it was useless, kept pressing down on a chest that would never rise again, until the medics physically pulled him away. They'd had to sedate him for the flight back to base. He'd screamed himself hoarse, broke his knuckles hitting the helicopter's metal wall, and when he finally came down, he was alone in a hospital bed, with Michael's dog tags somehow in his hand and no memory of how they'd gotten there. The truck's headlights caught a deer on the roadside, eyes reflecting green before it bounded into the trees. Jack blinked, realized he'd driven 30 miles on pure muscle memory, the road to Riverside unspooling beneath wheels that knew where they needed to go even if his head wasn't sure. He pulled over at a rest stop, killed the engine, sat in silence broken only by the ticking of cooling metal. His phone showed 5:23, text from Diesel in the group chat. "Anyone know anything about this kid? We should do something." Other messages piling up. Clutch. "That's fucked up. Who are the punks who did it?" Hammer. "I got kids. This makes me sick." Raven. "Do we know where this happened? We should ride down there." The Brotherhood was waking up, anger spreading through the group like fire through kindling. Jack watched the messages multiply, brothers from 3 states checking in, offering support, ready to roll if someone pointed them in the right direction. This was what they did. This was the purpose of the Steel Brotherhood. The reason grown men spent their weekends on motorcycles instead of golf courses. They stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. They honored the fallen by protecting the living. Jack's fingers moved before his brain caught up, typing into the group chat. His name is Ryan Hayes, son of Lieutenant Michael Hayes. Killed in action, Syria 2016. Michael saved my life. I'm handling this. The response was immediate. Diesel, you need us? We're there. Just say when. Clutch. For Hayes? Absolutely. Hammer, that kid's got family now. Axel, the club VP, private messaged. Jack, you good? Haven't heard from you in months and suddenly you're back in. What's going on? Jack stared at the question, multiple answers fighting for voice. I'm not good. I've never been good. I abandoned this kid for 8 years and now he's being bullied and it's my fault for not being there. But what came out was simpler. I made a promise. Time to keep it. Axel's response came fast. Whatever you need, we ride for brothers. Michael was a brother. Jack pocketed the phone and restarted the truck, pulling back onto 287 as the first hint of dawn started graying the eastern sky. He'd burned through an hour sitting in that rest stop, circling the same guilt and shame that had paralyzed him for 8 years. But the video had changed something. Seeing Ryan's face, seeing that kid break down in a parking lot while strangers laughed, had cracked through the ice that had been freezing Jack's chest since Syria. Michael's last words echoed. He needs a father figure. The world's hard for him. 8 years late, but Jack was finally ready to hear them. The sun was cresting the mountains by the time Jack pulled into Riverside, a town that had probably been pretty once before time, and economics wore it down. Main Street ran 3 blocks, lined with buildings that needed paint and optimism. River's Edge Diner sat in the middle, exactly where the video had been filmed. Jack parked across the street, killed the engine, and sat studying the place where Ryan's world had fallen apart. The parking lot was empty at 6:45 on a Saturday morning. Just scattered trash in the bench where the kid had been sitting. Jack could see it all playing out again. The approach, the attack, the casual cruelty of kids who didn't know they were destroying someone. His hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to make old injuries ache, bones that had been broken in Syria and never quite healed right. His phone buzzed. "Pops, where are you?" Jack typed. "Riverside, outside the diner." "Pops, stay there. I'm 10 minutes out." Jack climbed out of the truck, bones creaking from the 3-hour drive and 49 years of mileage. The morning air bit cold, carrying the smell of snow that hadn't fallen yet but would soon. He walked to the bench where Ryan had been sitting, found a dark stain on the concrete that might have been spilled food or blood or just old grime. Didn't matter. This spot was sacred now. marked by suffering the way battlefields were marked by the ghosts of men who'd fallen. A Harley's rumble announced Pops's arrival before the bike came into view, a '79 shovelhead that the old man had been riding since before Jack was born. Sergeant Major Frank Morrison climbed off with the careful movements of a 78-year-old body held together by stubbornness and pride. Bad left leg from Incheon landing in 1950, shrapnel that doctors said would kill him eventually, but hadn't managed yet. He walked with a cane carved from a rifle stock, presentation piece from his retirement ceremony that he'd turned into a functional weapon. "You look like hell, Jack." Jack studied the old man who'd been more father than his actual father ever managed. Pops wore his Steel Brotherhood colors despite the cold, leather vest over flannel, dog tags from 3 wars hanging visible against his chest. Korean War, Vietnam, Gulf War. 78 years old and still riding, still showing up, still believing in things like honor and duty when the world had mostly moved on from those concepts. Haven't been sleeping. Pops's eyes, roomy but sharp, took in everything. The trembling hands, the weight loss, the particular exhaustion that came from fighting battles no one else could see. Still having the dreams? Every night, Mike's face, the blood, him asking me to promise. "And you're here now, took you long enough." The words hit harder than a fist. Jack wanted to defend himself, to explain the 8 years of paralysis and fear and shame, but Pops's expression said he already knew. Old soldiers recognize the symptoms of moral injury, the kind of wound that didn't show on x-rays but crippled a man just as effectively as missing limbs. "I saw the video. That's Mike's kid." Pops nodded. "I was here, sitting inside having pie, when it happened. Watched the whole thing through the window. And I went outside after those punks left. Helped the boy up. He was crying, trying not to, but crying anyway. Had his father's eyes, same way Michael looked when he was hurting but didn't want to admit it." Jack's chest tightened. "What did you tell him?" Pops leaned on his cane, weight shifting to the good leg. "Told him I knew his father. Told him what happened wasn't right. Told him I'd make sure it didn't go unanswered. That's when you called me. That's when I realized you needed to be called. You've been hiding in that shop for 8 years, Jack. Building bikes you never finish. Avoiding everything that matters. Mike's boy needed you and you weren't there." The accusation landed clean. Jack couldn't argue because it was true. He looked at the bench again, imagining Ryan sitting there waiting for his mother, just trying to exist in a world that kept punishing him for being different. "I failed him. Failed Mike." Pops's cane tapped the pavement. "Past tense is easy. Present tense is harder." "What are you going to do now?" Jack met the old man's eyes. "I don't know. Show up? Apologize for 8 years of nothing? What am I supposed to say? You're supposed to keep your promise. That's what soldiers do. We keep our word even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." A car pulled into the diner's lot, early morning cook arriving to prep for breakfast service. The woman looked at Jack and Pops with suspicion, probably wondering what 2 bikers were doing in her parking lot at 7 in the morning. Pops waved, friendly gesture that did nothing to ease her concern, and she hurried inside. "This town doesn't trust outsiders. Small towns never do. They take care of their own, except when their own is a deaf kid with a dead father. Then suddenly everyone's too busy to notice. You know where they live?" Pops pulled a piece of paper from his vest pocket, address written in careful block letters. "Kate Hayes still works at Mercy Hospital. Ryan's in 10th grade at Riverside High. They live on Maple Street, small ranch house, blue trim. Or it used to be blue. Paint's probably peeling by now. You've been keeping tabs. Someone had to. You think I'd make a promise to look after a fallen soldier's family and then forget about it? I've been checking in for 8 years, Jack. Christmas cards, birthday cards for the boy. Kate knows me. She'll remember. And she'll remember I didn't show up." Pops's expression hardened. "Then you better have a damn good reason ready, because that woman has been alone for 8 years, working double shifts to keep a roof over her kid's head, and her son just got humiliated on camera while this town watched and did nothing. She doesn't need your guilt. She needs your help." The words stung because they were right. Jack's shame was his own burden, not something to dump on Kate's doorstep like an offering. He'd made this about himself when it needed to be about Ryan, about keeping a promise that was 8 years overdue. I'll go see her today, but first I need to know about the kids who did this. Pops's jaw tightened. Tyler Brennan, 17 quarterback. His father is Colonel Robert Brennan, retired Army. Jack's head snapped up. Brennan? Same Brennan who served with Mike in Afghanistan? The same. Jack's hands curled into fists. Mike mentioned him, said Brennan was jealous, that he tried to sabotage Mike's career. More than tried, succeeded. Robert Brennan filed a false report claiming Michael had leadership issues, cost him a promotion that would have meant better pay, better benefits for Kate and Ryan. Michael knew but never fought back, said it wasn't worth the energy. And now Brennan's kid is bullying Mike's kid. Pops nodded slowly. Apple doesn't fall far. Robert Brennan taught his son that strength means dominance, that you step on others to climb higher. Tyler's just following the playbook. Jack's vision narrowed, rage and purpose crystallizing into something sharp. Where does Brennan live? Pops's hand caught Jack's arm, gripped surprisingly strong for a man pushing 80. No, that's not how we do this. He hurt Mike's kid. And if you hurt him back, you become the thing we're supposed to be fighting. You dishonor Michael's memory. Jack pulled free, pacing the parking lot like a caged animal. Then what? We do nothing? We do something, but we do it right, with honor, with discipline, the way Mike would want. Mike's dead. I'm not. Exactly. You're alive because he died for you. Don't waste that gift on revenge. Use it to be the man he believed you could be. The words hit like artillery, stopping Jack mid-stride. He stood there breathing hard, rage and grief and 8 years of survivor's guilt of fighting for dominance. Pops was right. Michael hadn't saved Jack's life so he could become a thug. He'd saved it because he believed in something better, something honorable. What do you suggest? Pops limped over to his bike, pulled out his phone, started typing. I suggest we call the Brotherhood. Every rider we can get, and we make a statement. What kind of statement? The kind that shows this town what real men do when someone hurts a child of a fallen soldier. Jack's phone buzzed, group chat lighting up as Pops sent the message to Steel Brotherhood and half a dozen other MC clubs across Montana and Wyoming. The message was simple: ride for respect. Riverside, Montana, next Saturday, for Lieutenant Michael Hayes' son. Spread the word. Responses started pouring in immediately. Diesel, I'm in. How many we need? Clutch. Whatever it takes, for Hayes. Messages from clubs Jack didn't even know Pops had contacted. Patriot Guard riders, Rolling Thunder, Montana, independent vets who rode alone but answered when the cause was right. Within 10 minutes, 20 bikes confirmed. Within 20, by the time Jack's phone stopped buzzing, 47 riders had committed to showing up in Riverside 7 days from now. That's a lot of bikes. Pops pocketed his phone. Michael earned it. His boy deserves to see what his father's sacrifice meant. Deserves to know he's not alone. And if those kids try something, we don't engage. We show dignity. We prove that strength doesn't come from fists or fear. It comes from showing up for people who can't fight alone. Jack looked at the bench again, at the spot where Ryan had broken down while the world watched. 47 motorcycles rolling into this small town, flags flying, brothers standing shoulder to shoulder. Not threatening, not violent, just present, just powerful. The kind of statement you couldn't ignore. I need to see him first, before Saturday. I need to know he's okay. Pops handed Jack the paper with Kate's address. Then go. But Jack, understand something. You're not just checking on a kid. You're making a commitment. If you walk into that house, you're saying you're back in his life. No more hiding, no more excuses. Can you handle that? Jack folded the paper, tucked it in his jacket pocket. I don't know, but I'm going to try. Trying's a start. Keep your phone on. We've got planning to do before Saturday. The old man climbed back on his shovel head, kicked it to life with the practiced motion of someone who'd been doing this since before Jack was born. The engine caught with a satisfying rumble, and Pops gave Jack one last look. Michael died believing in you. Don't make him wrong. Then he rode off, leaving Jack alone in the parking lot with his guilt and his purpose and the address of a family he'd abandoned burning a hole in his pocket. The sun was full up now, Saturday morning coming to life around him. Jack climbed back in his truck, unfolded the paper, studied the address written in Pops's careful hand. 849 Maple Street, 3 miles from where he sat, 8 years from where he should have been. Jack put the truck in gear and drove. Riverside's residential streets told the same story as Main Street. Better days remembered through peeling paint and deferred maintenance. Houses that had been built with pride in the 70s now sagged under the weight of time and tight budgets. Jack found Maple Street easily enough, a dead-end road that backed up to State Forest. The Hayes house sat third from the corner, a small ranch with blue trim that had faded to gray and a lawn that needed mowing despite winter coming. Jack parked across the street, killed the engine, and sat studying the place where Michael's family lived. A rusted sedan in the driveway, 10 years old minimum. Roof missing shingles, front porch with wood that looked soft from rot. This was what 8 years of a nurse's salary bought when you were raising a kid alone in a town with limited opportunities. This was what happened when the Army gave you a flag and a pension that never quite covered what you'd lost. Guilt ate at Jack's chest. He should have been here, should have helped Kate with repairs, should have been the uncle or family friend or something that made Ryan's life easier instead of hiding in Pittsburgh building motorcycles that went nowhere. Michael had asked for one thing, made one dying request, and Jack had failed so completely it hurt to breathe. Movement in the window, someone passing through the living room. Jack's hand reached for the door handle, then stopped. 7:30 on a Saturday morning, showing up unannounced after 8 years of silence. What was he supposed to say? Hi, remember me? Sorry I abandoned you, but I saw a video of your son crying and suddenly remembered I promised to help. His phone buzzed. Text from Carl, his sponsor. You doing okay? Haven't heard from you in a few days. Jack typed back, I'm in Riverside. About to do something I should have done 8 years ago, Carl. That's cryptic. You staying sober? Jack looked at the unopened bottle still sitting in his truck's cup holder. The Jim Beam that had ridden with him for 6 months is a test he passed every day just by not breaking the seal. Yeah, I'm good. Carl, call me if you need to talk, day or night. Jack pocketed the phone and forced himself out of the truck before cowardice could win. His boots hit pavement that cracked from frost heaves, and he walked across the street with the slow inevitability of a man approaching execution. 3 steps up to the porch. Wood creaked under his weight, doorbell that might or might not work. He knocked instead. Footsteps inside, quick and light. The door opened and Kate Hayes stood there in scrubs. Dark circles under eyes that had been bright in the photos Michael carried. She'd aged more than 8 years, the way people aged when life ground them down through poverty and loss. 40 years old but looking 50, hair pulled back in a ponytail, exhaustion worn like a uniform. Her eyes widened. Jack? Ma'am? Kate, I don't know if you remember. She pulled him into the house so fast he stumbled. Get inside before the neighbors see thee. Quick, Jack found himself in a living room that smelled of coffee and laundry detergent. Kate shutting the door and checking the window before turning back to him. What are you doing here? The question carried weight. 8 years of wait. Jack's prepared speech evaporated under the intensity of her stare. I saw the video of Ryan. You came to what? Check on us. 8 years, Jack. 8 years of nothing and now you show up because some video went viral? The words were knives, sharp and accurate. Jack absorbed them, standing still, taking what he deserved. You're right, I should have been here. I made a promise to Mike and I didn't keep it. I was drowning in my own shit and I let you both down. There's no excuse. Kate's anger deflated into something worse. Disappointment. She gestured to the couch, threadbare fabric that had seen better days. Sit. I need to finish getting ready for work. Night shift ends at 8. Day shift starts at 8:30. I've been pulling doubles since rent went up. She disappeared down a hallway, leaving Jack in a room filled with Michael's memory. Photos covered every surface. Michael in uniform, Michael with a baby Ryan, Michael and Kate on their wedding day, both of them young and hopeful and unaware of what the future held. The largest frame held Michael's flag, the one they draped over his coffin, folded into that perfect triangle that meant your family member died serving. Jack's chest constricted. He stood and walked to the flag, placed his hand flat against the glass. This should have been in a house Michael owned, surrounded by the family he'd lived to see grow. Instead, it was the centerpiece of a shrine built by survivors who did their best with what they had. Kate returned wearing different scrubs, pulling her hair into a fresh ponytail. I have 20 minutes before I need to leave. Say what you came to say. Jack turned from the flag. How's Ryan? Kate's expression hardened. How do you think? He hasn't left his room since Friday. Won't eat, won't communicate. The school says he can come back Monday, but he's refusing. I don't know what to do anymore. I want to help. Why? Why now, Jack? Where were you when he started high school and had no friends? Where were you when I worked 3 jobs to keep this roof over our heads? Where were you when he came home crying because kids called him retard and I had to explain that some people were just cruel? The litany of failures stacked up between them. Jack had no defense except the truth. I was broken. Mike died in my arms and I couldn't handle it. I came to the funeral and looked at you and Ryan, and all I could see was everything I'd failed to protect. So I ran, hid in my shop, built bikes and told myself you'd moved on, that you didn't need some fucked up vet making your life harder. Kate's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You know what Ryan asked me after the funeral? He asked if you were going to be his new dad because his real dad was gone. He was 8 years old and he'd just lost everything and he thought maybe you'd step in. The words gutted Jack. He sat down hard on the couch, head in his hands. I didn't know because you never asked. You sent a card at Christmas for maybe 3 years, then nothing. I moved on because I had to, Jack. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. I had a son who needed me. I'm sorry. Kate wiped her eyes angrily. Sorry doesn't pay bills. Sorry doesn't fix what those kids did to Ryan. Sorry is just a word. Then let me do more than words. Let me help. Please. Kate studied him with the kind of assessment nurses developed, the ability to see past what people said to what they meant. What Pop said is true? You're planning something? We're riding next Saturday, 47 bikers from across Montana, to show Ryan he's not alone, to show this town that Mike's sacrifice meant something. And then what? You ride off and we don't see you for another 8 years? No, Jack met her eyes. I'm staying, however long it takes. I made Mike a promise and I'm keeping it. Even if you tell me to leave, even if Ryan wants nothing to do with me. I'm here. Kate's phone buzzed. She checked it, swore softly. I have to go. They're short-staffed and I'm already late. She grabbed a jacket from the hook by the door, then turned back. Ryan's in his room, second door on the left. I don't know if he'll talk to you. He doesn't talk to anyone anymore. Can I try? Kate hesitated, hand on the doorknob. You heard him again, Jack, and I'll make sure every biker in the state knows what kind of man you really are. Understood? Understood. She left, the door closing with finality. Jack sat in the silence of Michael's shrine, surrounded by photos of a life cut short and a family trying to survive the aftermath. The hallway beckoned, second door on the left, where a kid who'd been failed by every adult in his life was hiding from a world that kept hurting him. Jack stood and walked down the hallway, each step feeling like approaching enemy territory. The door was closed, no sound from inside. He knocked, then realized the futility. Kid was deaf. Knocking meant nothing. He opened the door slowly. Ryan Hayes sat on his bed, hood up, headphones on, even though they were decorative rather than functional. The room was sparse, desk with school books that looked untouched. Posters of skateboarders doing tricks. A skateboard in the corner, split down the middle, broken beyond repair. Ryan didn't look up, probably hadn't heard the door. Jack stood in the doorway studying the kid who'd been 8 last time they'd met and was now nearly a man. 16. Michael's features coming through stronger with age. Same stubborn jaw. Same way of holding tension in his shoulders like he was bracing for the next hit. Jack stepped into the room, deliberately heavy footfalls. The vibration caught Ryan's attention. The kid's head snapped up, eyes widening when he saw a stranger in his room. Fear flashed across his face before hardening into something defensive. Jack raised his hands, universal gesture of peace. He pulled out his phone, typed quickly. Hi, Ryan. My name is Jack. Your dad saved my life. He turned the phone to show the text. Ryan stared at it, then at Jack, suspicion evident. Jack scrolled through his photos, found the one he'd been looking at all morning. Him and Michael in Syria, arms around each other, both grinning despite the dust and heat. He showed Ryan the photo. The kid's expression cracked. He took the phone with trembling hands, zoomed in on Michael's face. His finger traced the outline of his father's smile, and Jack saw the exact moment Ryan broke. Silent tears, the kind that came from grief too big for sound. Jack sat on the floor, non-threatening position, giving Ryan space. The kid clutched the phone like it was sacred, staring at the image of a father he barely remembered but missed with everything in him. Minutes passed, Jack didn't move, didn't speak. Just sat there being present in a way he should have been for 8 years. Finally, Ryan handed back the phone. His hands moved in signs Jack didn't understand, fluid and expressive in a language Jack had never bothered to learn. The kid's face showed frustration when Jack didn't respond. Jack typed on his phone, "I don't know sign language. I'm sorry. Can we type?" Ryan nodded, grabbed a phone from his nightstand, newer model than Jack expected, probably a necessity rather than luxury. His thumbs flew across the screen. "Who are you?" Jack typed back. "Jack Callahan. I served with your father in Syria. He died saving my life." Ryan's next message came fast. "Why are you here?" "Because your dad made me promise to look after you. I didn't keep that promise. I'm sorry, but I'm here now." Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then, "Why didn't you come before?" Jack's thumbs hovered over the keyboard. He could lie, could soften it, but this kid deserved truth. "Because I was a coward. Your dad died and I couldn't handle it. So I hid. I told myself you didn't need me. But I saw what happened to you Friday night and I realized I've been lying to myself. You needed me. Your dad asked me to be there and I wasn't. I'm sorry." Ryan read it 3 times. His response was 2 words: "Prove it." Jack looked up from his phone. "How?" Ryan typed, "Don't leave again. Everyone leaves." The simplicity of it broke something in Jack's chest. This kid had learned that people disappeared, that promises were just words, that the world took and took and took without giving back. His father, taken by war. His extended family, apparently absent. Friends, clearly non-existent based on that video. And now here was Jack, another adult making claims and promises. Jack typed, "I won't leave. I promise. I know promises don't mean much right now, but I'm going to keep this one." Ryan's response, "People always say that." Jack set his phone down, pulled Michael's dog tags from inside his shirt, the ones he'd carried for 8 years like a penance. He'd planned to give them to Ryan eventually, some big ceremonial moment. But sitting on this kid's floor, seeing the exhaustion and hurt and desperate need to believe, Jack realized the moment was now. He held out the tags. Ryan's eyes went wide. He looked at the tags, at Jack, back at the tags. His hands shook as he reached out, took them gently like they might shatter. He read the inscription: Hayes Michael J., LT, 03, U.S. Army. Jack typed, "I've carried these since he died, couldn't let them go. But they're yours, they always should have been." Ryan clutched the tags to his chest, and this time when he cried, the sound came through, broken sobs from a kid who'd been holding it together through sheer force of will. Jack wanted to hug him, to offer comfort, but he didn't know if touch was welcome. So he just sat there, witness to grief he'd helped create through absence. When Ryan finally composed himself, he typed, "What happens now?" Jack pulled up the group chat, showed Ryan the messages from 47 bikers confirming they'd ride for him, scrolled through responses from men who'd never met Michael, but understood what it meant when a soldier died and left family behind. Showed him Pops' message about the ride next Saturday. Ryan read it all, disbelief clear on his face, then, "Why would they do this for me?" Jack typed, "Because your dad was a soldier. Because you're his son. Because that's what we do. We take care of our own. But I'm not military. You're the son of a hero. That makes you family." Ryan's thumbs moved across his screen, stopped, started again. Finally, "The kids who did this, Tyler Brennan and his friends, are you going to hurt them?" Jack paused. The honest answer was yes, he wanted to. Wanted to make them feel a fraction of what Ryan felt. But Pops's words echoed, "Don't waste Michael's sacrifice on revenge. No, we're not going to hurt anyone. We're going to show them what real strength looks like. Strength isn't making others weak. It's standing up for people who can't fight alone." Ryan studied the message, then typed, "My dad used to say something like that. He said heroes protect people, they don't hurt them. Your dad was right." A long pause, then Ryan typed, "Can I ask you something? Anything. What was he like? My dad? I don't remember much. I was only 8 when he died." Jack's chest tightened. He picked up his phone, started typing, stopped. "How did you summarize a man's life in text messages to his son? How did you capture the way Michael laughed at bad jokes, or the intensity with which he studied maps before patrols, or the gentleness he showed when talking about his family? He was the best man I ever knew. Smart, brave, kind, even when kindness cost him. He talked about you constantly, showed everyone pictures, made us all jealous because he had this amazing kid at home who he got to teach and watch grow up." Ryan's response, "Really? Really? He was so proud of you. Told me once that you were braver than any soldier he'd served with because you faced a world that wasn't built for you and you did it with grace." Tears again, but quieter this time. Ryan typed, "I wish I could hear his voice. I don't remember what he sounded like." Jack scrolled through his phone, found a video he'd forgotten he had. Training exercise in Syria, Michael explaining tactics to his squad, his voice clear and strong, authority mixed with warmth. Jack turned the phone so Ryan could see. The kid watched his father move and speak, lip-reading words he couldn't hear but could see. When the video ended, Ryan watched it again, then a third time. On the fourth viewing, his lips moved, mimicking his father's speech patterns, learning the shape of words he'd never experienced as sound. "Can I send this to myself?" Jack nodded. Showed Ryan how to airdrop the video. The kid's phone buzzed with the transfer, and he immediately saved it to favorites, probably the most precious file he owned. They sat there on Ryan's bedroom floor for another hour. Jack sharing stories about Michael, Ryan asking questions through text, both of them grieving a man who deserved better than he got. Jack learned that Ryan loved skateboarding but hadn't skated since the broken board. Learned that he drew portraits, spent hours sketching faces from memory. Learned that Kate worked herself to exhaustion trying to provide while Ryan tried to be invisible at school to avoid exactly the kind of attention he'd gotten Friday night. The kid was lonely, devastatingly lonely, and Jack had let that happen through 8 years of cowardice disguised as consideration. His phone buzzed. Text from Pops, "You with the kid?" Jack typed back, "Yeah, we're talking." Pops, "Good. Keep me updated. Church meeting tomorrow, 2 p.m. We need to plan Saturday." Jack showed Ryan the message. The kid read it, then typed, "What's church?" "Motorcycle club meeting, where we plan rides and take care of business. Can I come?" Jack hesitated. MC meetings weren't usually open to outsiders, but this wasn't usual circumstances. He texted Pops, "Kid wants to come to church tomorrow. That cool?" Pops's response was immediate. "Bring him, he's family." Jack showed Ryan, "You're invited." The smile that spread across Ryan's face was the first genuine expression of joy Jack had seen from him. Small victory, but it counted. Kate got home at 3, exhausted from a double shift, and found Jack and Ryan sitting at the kitchen table with a pizza Jack had ordered. The confusion on her face was palpable. "What's going on?" Ryan signed something rapid and enthusiastic. Kate's expression softened as she translated. "He says you told him stories about his dad. He says you're staying, if that's okay with you." Kate looked between them, clearly torn between protecting her son and allowing something good to happen. Finally, "You heard him, Jack, and you answered to me. Clear? Crystal." She grabbed a slice of pizza, sat down at the table, and for the first time in 8 years, Jack sat with Michael's family like he should have been doing all along. They ate in companionable near silence, Ryan occasionally signing something that Kate translated, creating a triangular conversation that was clumsy but functional. After pizza, Jack helped clean up while Kate got Ryan to finally eat something substantial. The normalcy of it, the domestic routine, felt foreign to Jack after years of solitude. But it also felt right in a way nothing had since Syria. I should get a hotel. Kate shook her head. Couch pulls out. Save your money. God knows I can't afford to be too proud to accept help. You sure? Ryan already likes you. If you disappear tonight, he'll think you lied about staying. I won't disappear. Kate's look was pointed. Prove it. So Jack stayed, slept on a pull-out couch that smelled of detergent and old springs, staring at the ceiling while exhaustion fought with purpose. For the first time in 8 years, the nightmares didn't come. Maybe because he was finally doing something that mattered. Maybe because he was keeping a promise instead of running from it. Or maybe Michael's ghost had finally stopped haunting him because Jack had finally started doing right by the living. Sunday morning brought church at 2, which meant Jack had time to help Kate with house repairs. He spent the morning replacing rotted porch boards, fixing a leaky faucet, basic maintenance that should have been done years ago. Ryan watched from the window, occasionally coming out to hand tools, their communication still clumsy but improving. Kate made lunch while Jack showered off the work grime, and they ate sandwiches at the table like this was normal, like Jack hadn't been absent for nearly a decade. She asked about the ride planned for Saturday, and Jack explained as much as he knew. 47 bikers, maybe more by the time word spread, a peaceful demonstration of support. No violence, no threats, just presence. And then what? Then I stay. Help out. Be the person Mike asked me to be. Kate's skepticism was evident but softening. We'll see. You've made promises before. Fair enough. I'll earn your trust back. At 1:30, Jack and Ryan loaded into the truck for the drive to Pittsburgh, where Steel Brotherhood held church in the back room of a bar called Murphy's Tavern. Ryan was nervous, fidgeting with his phone, typing questions Jack answered while driving. What if they don't like me? They'll like you. Your dad was one of us. That makes you family. But I can't hear. What if they think They'll think you're brave, because you are. The tavern parking lot was already filling with bikes when they arrived. Harleys and Indians and custom builds that represented months of work. Jack recognized most of them. Diesel's Fat Boy, Clutch's Sportster, Hammer's adapted trike that compensated for his missing leg. Brothers he hadn't seen in months all gathered because Pops had called and the cause was right. Diesel spotted Jack first, a mountain of a man with a gray beard and arms like trees. Callahan, about damn time you showed your face. They clasped hands, forearm to forearm, the grip that meant brotherhood. Diesel looked past Jack to Ryan, standing nervous by the truck. This the kid? Jack nodded. Ryan Hayes, Mike's son. Diesel walked over, moved slow and deliberate so as not to spook the kid. He extended his hand and Ryan shook it, clearly intimidated by this giant in leather and patches. Diesel pulled out his phone, typed, Your old man saved a lot of lives, including Jack's. We're honored to ride for you. Ryan read the message, nodded, managed a small smile. One by one, the brothers introduced themselves. Axel, the club VP, serious and measured. Doc, former medic who still carried trauma shears on his belt. Clutch, who'd been homeless for 3 years after Iraq before the club found him. Hammer, who lost his leg in Fallujah but refused to stop riding. Raven, the only woman in the club. Former Army nurse who'd seen too many good men die. Each one pulled out their phone to communicate with Ryan, making the effort because this kid mattered, because his father had mattered. Ryan's expression transformed from nervous to overwhelmed to something approaching happy. Maybe for the first time in years, he was surrounded by people who went out of their way to include him instead of exclude him. Pops arrived last, pulling up on his shovel head with the same dramatic timing he'd perfected over 7 decades of motorcycle riding. The old man surveyed the gathered brothers, nodded approval, then gestured everyone inside. Church was held in Murphy's back room, a space that smelled of beer and leather and years of brotherhood. 23 bikers filled the chairs arranged in a rough circle. Ryan sitting next to Jack, eyes wide at this gathering of warriors. Pop stood at the center, cane in one hand, authority in his posture. Brothers and sister. We're here because one of our own needs help. Ryan Hayes, stand up. Ryan looked at Jack, uncertain. Jack typed, He wants you to stand. It's respect. The kid stood, face flushed with attention. This young man's father, Lieutenant Michael Hayes, made the ultimate sacrifice serving this country. He died protecting his brothers in arms, died the way a soldier should, knowing his life bought others theirs. And now his son has been attacked by punks who think strength means cruelty. Pops gestured around the circle. We know different. Real strength is standing up for those who can't fight alone. Real strength is keeping our word when it's hard. That's why we're riding Saturday. To show this kid in his town that a soldier's sacrifice doesn't end when he's buried. It continues through us. The brothers nodded, somber agreement. Pops continued. We ride at 0900, formation from here to Riverside, 40 miles. We gather at River's Edge Diner, the site of the attack. We present colors. We stand in silence. We make our statement through presence, not violence. Any questions? Diesel raised his hand. Rules of engagement. If those kids start something, we don't engage. We're there to support Ryan, not fight teenagers. Anyone who breaks that rule answers to me. The threat was clear. Pops might be 78, but he commanded respect that transcended age. No one wanted to cross the old man. Axel spoke up. What about after? We ride in, make our point, then what? Pops looked at Jack. Callahan's staying, making good on a promise 8 years overdue. Anyone else wants to help? Coordinate with him. Raven raised her phone. I can organize supply runs, food, household stuff. Kate's working doubles. She shouldn't have to worry about basics. Doc nodded. I'll check what medical resources Ryan needs. Hearing aids, therapy, whatever. One by one, the brothers volunteered. Clutch would help with house repairs. Hammer knew a lawyer who could advise on disability rights. Snake had connections at the school board. This was what brotherhood meant. Not just riding together, but showing up when it mattered. Ryan watched it all, typing on his phone, showing messages to Jack, who read them and smiled. The kid couldn't hear the pledges of support, but he could see them in faces, in the way these hardened veterans leaned forward with genuine concern. Church lasted 2 hours, planning logistics for Saturday and beyond. When it finally broke up, brothers approached Ryan individually, some sharing their own stories of loss or struggle, others just offering a hand to shake or shoulder to grab. The kid was overwhelmed, but in the best way, surrounded by a community he hadn't known existed. Jack and Ryan drove back to Riverside in comfortable silence. Ryan scrolling through contacts he'd added to his phone. 23 new numbers, 23 people who'd gone out of their way to include him. The kid's smile was small but genuine, and Jack felt something that had been dead for 8 years flicker back to life. Purpose. Kate was waiting when they got home, fresh from another shift, exhaustion carved deep in her face. Her eyes questioned and Jack nodded. It went well. Really well. Ryan signed enthusiastically, Kate translating. They all learned my name. They all used their phones to talk to me. Nobody acted like I was broken. Because you're not broken, baby. You're just different. They liked me. Kate's eyes filled with tears. Of course they did. You're your father's son. That night, Jack slept on the pull-out couch again, but this time he dreamed. Not nightmares of Syria, but memories. Good ones. Michael teaching him to rebuild a carburetor. Michael showing pictures of Ryan learning to skateboard. Michael laughing at a joke that wasn't funny, but they'd all laughed anyway, because sometimes you just needed to laugh. Jack woke Monday morning feeling more rested than he had in years. Kate was already at the hospital, Ryan at school despite his reluctance. Jack spent the day fixing more of the house, replacing the front porch railing that was one bad winter from collapse, patching roof shingles that had blown off in storms. Mindless work that let his hands move while his brain processed. He'd made a promise. Kept running from it for 8 years. And in 3 days, Saturday, he'd stand with 47 brothers and show a town what keeping your word looked like. The week passed in a blur of preparation. Pops coordinated logistics, mapping the ride route, confirming numbers that kept climbing. 50 bikes, 60. By Thursday, 72 riders had confirmed, a rolling thunder of purpose heading for a small Montana town that had no idea what was coming. Jack spent his days at the Hayes house working on repairs and getting to know Ryan. The kid was teaching him basic ASL, patient with Jack's clumsy attempts to sign simple phrases. Good morning, thank you. I'm here for you. The language was beautiful in its efficiency, Emotion conveyed through movement and expression in ways spoken words couldn't match. Ryan opened up gradually, showing Jack his sketches. The kid had real talent, faces rendered with the kind of attention that came from watching people constantly, reading expressions for meaning that others heard in tone. Page after page of portraits. Kate exhausted after double shifts. Classmates who ignored him. Teachers who talked too fast for him to lip read. And dozens of drawings of Michael, each one slightly different, Ryan trying to hold on to a face that was fading from memory. Friday night, Kate made dinner while Jack and Ryan set the table. The domesticity of it still felt foreign, but less so every day. They ate together, communicated through a mix of sign, typing, and Kate translating. After dinner, Ryan went to his room and returned with something wrapped in newspaper. He handed it to Jack. Inside was a drawing. Jack and Michael from that Syria photo, rendered in pencil with incredible detail. Every line of their faces, every fold of their uniforms, the way they stood together like brothers. At the bottom, Ryan had signed it, "Thank you for coming back." Jack's throat closed. He looked at Ryan, this kid who'd been failed by so many adults but still had the capacity to trust, to hope, to create something beautiful out of grief. "Tomorrow we ride for you." Ryan signing something, Kate translating. "I know. I'm scared, but I'm ready. Nothing to be scared of. We're family." Ryan's smile was tentative but real. Family. That night, Jack didn't sleep much. Not from nightmares, but from anticipation. Tomorrow, 72 motorcycles would roll into Riverside, Montana. Tomorrow, Jack would stand in the parking lot where Ryan had been broken down and prove that promises kept mattered more than promises broken. Tomorrow, he'd start making things right. And somewhere, maybe Michael's ghost would finally rest easy. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of cold that made breath visible and bones ache. Jack woke on the pull-out couch at 4:30, body refusing sleep despite exhaustion that ran marrow deep. The house was silent around him, Kate already gone for her early shift, Ryan still sleeping down the hall. Jack dressed in the darkness, pulling on jeans and the Steel Brotherhood vest he hadn't worn in months. Leather stiff from disuse, but the patches still proud. Michael's dog tags, no, Ryan's now, hung around the kid's neck in the next room, transferred ownership that felt right in ways Jack couldn't articulate. He made coffee in Kate's small kitchen, the machine gurgling and hissing, while Dawn stayed stubbornly absent outside the window. 72 motorcycles would converge on Riverside in 5 hours. 72 warriors rolling in to make a statement about honor and promises and what happened when you hurt a soldier's family. Jack's hands shook as he poured the coffee, not from fear, but from the weight of what this day meant. His phone buzzed. Text from Pops. "Riders staging at Murphy's at 0700. You bringing the kid?" Jack typed back. "Yeah, we'll be there." "Good. This is his day. Make sure he knows that." Jack sipped coffee that burned going down, stared at the living room where Michael's flag hung in its triangle frame. 8 years he'd avoided this house, this family, this responsibility. And now here he sat in the pre-dawn darkness, about to lead 72 bikers in a demonstration of something he'd failed at for nearly a decade. The irony wasn't lost on him. Footsteps in the hallway. Ryan emerged in sweatpants and a hoodie, rubbing sleep from eyes that were Michael's down to the flecks of gold in the brown. The kid moved to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, noticed Jack sitting there. His hands moved in signs Jack had learned this week. "You okay?" Jack signed back, clumsy but functional. Nervous. Ryan's expression showed surprise that Jack had answered in ASL. The kid pulled out his phone, typed, "Why nervous? You're not the one everyone will stare at. Because this matters. If we mess this up, we make things worse for you." Ryan sat at the table, phone between them. "You won't mess up. Pop said you're good at this. Pop says a lot of things." The kid smiled, small expression that transformed his face from guarded to almost happy. "He's old, but he's smart." Jack laughed despite the tension coiling in his chest. "That he is." They sat in comfortable silence while the sky outside slowly lightened from black to gray. Jack remembered mornings like this in Syria, the quiet before operations when men gathered their courage and checked their gear and tried not to think about what might go wrong. Different context, but the same fundamental truth. Sometimes you had to walk into fear because The alternative was living with cowardice. What happens after today? Ryan's question hung between them. Jack considered lying, offering easy reassurance that everything would be perfect once 72 bikes rolled through town. But this kid had been lied to enough through omission and absence. I don't know. We make our statement, show the town you're not alone. After that, we figure it out day by day. Will you still be here? Next week? Next month? Jack met the kid's eyes. I'm not leaving. I promised that, and I meant it. Ryan studied him with the kind of assessment that came from a lifetime of people breaking promises. Finally, he nodded. Okay, they ate breakfast in silence, cereal and toast that neither really tasted. At 6:30, Kate called from the hospital to wish them luck. Her voice tight with worry. Jack pretended not to hear. At 6:45, Jack and Ryan loaded into the truck and headed for Pittsburgh. The road empty except for early shift workers and the ghosts of 8 years' worth of excuses. Murphy's Tavern parking lot was already packed when they arrived at 7, motorcycles lined up in precise rows like soldiers at formation. Jack counted bikes as he parked. 74. 2 more than yesterday's count. Brotherhood expanding overnight as word spread. Men moved between the machines, checking oil levels and tire pressure, and the thousand small details that kept iron horses running. Pop stood at the center of organized chaos, clipboard in hand, orchestrating logistics with the precision of someone who'd planned military operations before most of these riders were born. The old man spotted Jack and Ryan, waved them over. Diesel's leading the main column. Axel's got the flag detail. You and the kid ride with me at the front. Jack shook his head. This isn't about me. Ryan should be visible, not me. Pop's expression hardened. The kid rides between us, protected. He's the reason we're here, but he's not a prop to parade around. Understood? Understood. Ryan had been reading lips, caught the gist of the conversation. His hands moved. Where do I ride? Jack signed back. With Pops and me. We protect you. The kid's face showed something between relief and anxiety. He'd never been on a motorcycle before, had admitted that last night when Jack asked. The broken skateboard in his room represented the closest he'd come to feeling wind and speed and freedom. Today would change that. Raven approached, the sole woman in the Steel Brotherhood, her presence commanding despite being 5'4" and maybe 130 soaking wet. Former Army nurse, she'd seen combat in ways that didn't involve rifles but were no less traumatic. She carried a spare helmet, smaller size, and handed it to Ryan with a smile that said she understood being the outsider in a group of alpha males. She typed on her phone. This was my nephew's. He outgrew it. Yours now if you want it. Ryan took the helmet like it was made of gold. Thank you. We take care of family. Your family. Riders continued arriving, the parking lot filling with the rumble of engines and the smell of exhaust and motor oil. Jack recognized faces from clubs he'd barely heard of. Warriors Watch from Wyoming, Patriot Guard riders from 3 Montana chapters, Rolling Thunder veterans who'd ridden together since Vietnam, old men and middle-aged men and a few younger vets from Iraq and Afghanistan, all of them here because a soldier had died and his son needed defending. Diesel climbed onto a picnic table, raised his voice over the engine noise. Listen up, we roll in 10. Formation's tight, no showboating, no aggressive revving. We're making a statement about dignity, not intimidation. Anyone breaks formation or starts shit answers to Pops. The assembled riders nodded. These were disciplined men. Warriors who understood the difference between strength and brutality. They'd come to support, not terrorize, though Jack suspected the town wouldn't immediately recognize the distinction when 74 Harleys rolled down Main Street. Pops pulled Jack aside while Ryan was getting fitted for riding gear. You ready for this? Jack considered the question. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Good answer. The old man's eyes held weight. You know this might not go smooth. Town's scared. Rumors have been flying all week about bikers coming to start trouble. We're not starting anything. I know that, you know that, but scared people make bad decisions. Be ready. Jack's jaw tightened. If anyone tries something, you stay calm. That's an order. You're here for the kid, not your ego. The rebuke landed clean. Jack nodded, swallowed his pride and his rage, and the part of him that wanted to make Tyler Brennan and every other person who had hurt Ryan suffer. Pops was right. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about showing up when it mattered. Engines fired up at 7:50, 74 motorcycles roaring to life in a symphony of American iron and determination. Ryan stood next to Pops's shovelhead, helmet on, eyes wide, with something between fear and excitement. Jack helped the kid climb on behind the old man, showed him where to hold, how to lean into curves. You'll feel the vibration through the bike. Trust it. Let your body move with the machine. Ryan nodded, knuckles white on Pops's vest. The old man looked back, gave the kid a thumbs up, then turned to Jack mounted on his own Harley beside them. Let's ride. The column pulled out of Murphy's parking lot in perfect formation, 2 by 2, flags flying from antenna mounts in sissy bars. American flags, Pio Bobo MIA flags. Steel Brotherhood colors and Patriot Guard standards and the personal banners of men who'd served in conflicts from Korea to Afghanistan. They rode through Pittsburgh at exactly the speed limit, drawing stares from early morning pedestrians who stopped to watch this river of leather and chrome flow past. The highway opened up and the formation shifted to staggered column, giving each rider space while maintaining cohesion. Jack rode slightly behind and to the left of Pops, close enough to see Ryan's expression as the kid experienced motorcycle riding for the first time. Fear had transformed into something else. Wonder, maybe, or the beginning of understanding why men spent fortunes on machines that offered nothing practical but freedom. 40 miles separated Pittsburgh from Riverside, a ride that should take maybe 50 minutes at highway speeds. Pops kept them at 60, steady and smooth, the whole column moving like a single organism. Jack watched the landscape scroll past, mountains giving way to foothills, pine forests breaking for clearings, where ranches clung to existence through determination and government subsidies. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it. Riding required focus, especially in formation this large. One mistake and bikes could go down, riders could get hurt, the whole statement they were making could collapse into tragedy. Jack kept his eyes moving. Road ahead. Ryan beside him, mirrors checking the column behind, the same situational awareness that had kept him alive in Syria now, keeping 74 civilians safe on a Montana highway. They passed a gas station and Jack's gut clenched. A Jeep sat at the pumps, and even from the highway he recognized the driver. Tyler Brennan, filling up, completely unaware that 74 motorcycles were about to descend on his town because of what he'd done. Jack's hands tightened on the handlebars, rage flaring hot and sudden. It would be easy to peel off, confront the kid, make him understand consequences. But Pops's words echoed, "Stay calm. You're here for Ryan, not your ego." Jack kept his eyes forward and let the formation carry him past temptation. The miles disappeared beneath wheels and throttle. Towns blurred by. Gardener, immigrant, prey, small clusters of civilizations separated by vast stretches of nothing. Montana in winter, beautiful and harsh and unforgiving to the unprepared. The column drew attention everywhere it passed, people stopping to stare at this unlikely parade of motorcycles heading south with purpose. Jack's phone buzzed again, then again. At the next red light, he risked checking. Messages from Kate. "Please be safe. Please don't let Ryan get hurt. Please come back." He typed one-handed. "We're safe, almost there." The light changed and the column rolled forward. Riverside now only 10 miles distant. Jack could feel tension building in his shoulders, anticipation mixing with dread. In minutes, they'd arrive at River's Edge Diner, the site where Ryan had been humiliated. In minutes, this small town would see what happened when you hurt a soldier's family. Pops raised his left hand, signal passing down the column. "Slow down, tighten up." The formation compressed, bikes moving closer together, speed dropping to 45, then 40. They were in Riverside city limits now, a weathered sign announcing population 5,047 and Rotary Club meetings every Tuesday. Main Street appeared ahead, and Jack's breath caught. The entire town had turned out. Hundreds of people lined the sidewalks, watching with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity to something that might have been respect. Police cars sat at intersections, officers standing outside vehicles ready for trouble but not actively blocking the route. The formation slowed to 25 miles per hour, a crawl through the town center. Every eye tracked the motorcycles, this rolling display of brotherhood and purpose. Jack saw kids pointing, mothers pulling them back, old men saluting from VFW posts. The column made no aggressive moves, no revving engines or shouted slogans, just presence, just power held in check. River's Edge Diner came into view, and Pops raised his hand again. The signal rippled back, prepare to stop. The lead bikes, Pops, Jack, and four others, pulled into the parking lot where Ryan had been attacked 6 days ago. The rest of the formation filled the street, bikes parking in perfect lines on both sides, creating a corridor of chrome and leather. 74 engines cut off simultaneously. The silence that followed was absolute, profound, almost sacred. Jack helped Ryan off Pops's bike, the kid trembling, either from cold or adrenaline or the sheer weight of this moment. Around them, bikers dismounted with military precision, each one taking position. Standing at parade rest, waiting. Pops remained on his bike, surveying the scene. The crowd had swelled to maybe 400 people. Half the town gathered to witness whatever this was. News vans from Billings and Helena sat parked at strategic points, cameras recording everything. Police Chief Anderson stood near his cruiser, hand near his sidearm, but not on it, clearly uncertain whether this gathering represented threat or support. The old man finally dismounted, moving slow to accommodate the bad leg that had been bothering him since Incheon in 1950. He walked to the center of the parking lot, cane tapping concrete, and the crowd quieted further. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of 7 decades in uniform and on the road. My name is Frank Morrison, Sergeant Major, United States Army, retired. I'm here with brothers from 6 motorcycle clubs across 3 states. We come in peace to honor the memory of Lieutenant Michael Hayes, who gave his life serving this country in Syria, 2016. The crowd murmured, some recognition of the name filtering through. Pops continued, 6 days ago in this parking lot, Lieutenant Hayes' son was attacked, bullied, humiliated, and the world watched because someone filmed it and posted it online for entertainment. Shame flickered across faces in the crowd. People looked away, looked down, looked anywhere but at Pops or Ryan or the 74 bikers standing in silent judgment. We're not here for revenge. We're here to show this young man that his father's sacrifice meant something, that soldiers take care of their own, and the son of a fallen soldier is our own. Pops gestured to Ryan. This is Ryan Hayes, 16 years old, lost his father when he was 8, deaf since birth. Been fighting battles you can't see or hear every day of his life. And last Friday, some of your children decided his struggle was funny. The words hit like artillery. Jack watched faces in the crowd crumple with guilt or harden with defensiveness. Somewhere in that mass of humanity stood Tyler Brennan and his friends, the kids who'd caused this, though Jack couldn't spot them from here. Pops pulled a folded flag from his vest, the same kind they draped over Michael's coffin 8 years ago. He walked to Ryan, moving slow and deliberate, every step weighted with ceremony. The kid stood frozen, eyes wide, as this 78-year-old Korean War veteran knelt on one knee in front of him. The old man held out the flag. Your father earned this. You've earned the right to hold your head high in this town or any other. Don't let anyone make you feel less. Ryan took the flag with shaking hands, clutched it to his chest. Silent tears tracked down his face, visible to the cameras and the crowd and the 74 bikers who'd ridden 40 miles to stand witness to this moment. Then Pops stood, turned to the assembled riders. Present colors, 74 right fists raised in unison, held at shoulder height, absolutely still. The salute lasted 30 seconds that felt like hours, each biker honoring not just Michael, but every soldier who died and left family behind. Then, on some unspoken signal, the fist lowered and the moment released its hold. Movement in the crowd. A woman pushed through, dragging a teenage boy by his arm. Jack recognized her from research he'd done this week. Patricia Brennan, Tyler's mother. The kid stumbled forward, face pale, clearly terrified. Behind them came a man in army dress uniform, silver oak leaves on his shoulders, ribbons earned in conflicts Jack could guess at. Colonel Robert Brennan, retired, Tyler's father, the man who'd sabotaged Michael's career out of jealousy and insecurity. Patricia stopped in front of Ryan, her face streaked with tears. I'm sorry. We're so sorry. Tyler stood mute, staring at the ground. His father placed a hand on his shoulder, voice carrying military command, even softened by shame. Look at him. Tyler's eyes lifted to Ryan's face. The two teenagers regarded each other across 6 feet of parking lot and years of different struggles. Tyler's mouth worked, trying to form words. Finally managing, I'm sorry I deleted the video. I told everyone who shared it to take it down. Jack's hands clenched into fists. Words were easy. Actions mattered. He started forward, but Pops's cane blocked his path, the old man's expression warning him to stand down. Ryan's hands moved in signs, Kate appearing from somewhere in the crowd to translate. He says, sorry doesn't fix what you broke, but he's willing to let you try to make it right. Tyler nodded, clearly relieved to not be getting the beating he probably expected. How? Ryan signed again. Kate's voice. Start by treating people like people, not targets. The kid nodded, backed away with his parents, and Jack watched them disappear into the crowd. Rage still simmered in his chest, the desire to make Tyler hurt the way Ryan had hurt. But he swallowed it down because Pops was right. Violence here would dishonor everything they were trying to build. George Carter emerged from the diner, the owner who'd watched through the window 6 days ago and done nothing. He approached Ryan with the slow walk of someone carrying heavy guilt. I saw what happened last Friday. I should have stopped it. I didn't. That's on me. Ryan watched him, expression neutral. George continued, I want to make it right. Starting today, this diner is sponsoring ASL classes every Thursday night, free to anyone who wants to learn. And you, he pointed at Ryan, you eat here free, for life. Consider it an apology I'd deserve to give. The crowd erupted in applause, some genuine support, some relief that the tension was breaking into something constructive. More business owners stepped forward with pledges. Hardware store offering supplies for home repairs. Bookstore starting a fund for deaf education. Grocery store offering Kate employee discounts. Jack watched the transformation happen in real time. Guilt and shame alchemizing into action. This was what Pops had meant about making statements through presence. Violence would have given the town an enemy to unite against. But this, 74 bikers standing silent witness, while a community reckoned with its failures, this created space for change. Principal Sandra Miller from Riverside High pushed through the crowd, introduced herself to Ryan through typing on her phone. I should have done more when your mom complained. I'm implementing zero-tolerance bullying policy Monday. An ASL will be offered as a language credit starting next semester. Ryan's expression shifted from guarded to cautiously optimistic. Around him, a town that had ignored him for years suddenly scrambled to include him, to make amends, to prove they were better than their worst moment. Jack knew some of it was performative, people acting good because cameras watched. But some of it felt genuine, adults recognizing they'd failed a child and trying to do better. The gathering lasted another hour, townspeople approaching Ryan to apologize or offer support, bikers standing patient guard while the kid processed more attention than he'd probably received in his entire life. Kate appeared at some point, finished with her shift, and stood with her arm around her son while he navigated this strange new reality where people cared. Jack stood back, watching, feeling something in his chest loosen. Michael would have loved this, would have been proud of Ryan's composure, Kate's strength, the community stepping up even if 8 years too late. And maybe possibly Michael would have forgiven Jack for taking so long to keep his promise. Pops approached, leaning heavy on his cane. You did good, Callahan. I didn't do anything. This was all you. The old man smiled. You showed up. That's all Mike asked. That's all that mattered. They stood together watching Ryan accept handshakes and hugs from strangers becoming neighbors. The kid looked overwhelmed but not unhappy, experiencing maybe the first public moment of his life where being different wasn't punishment, but just another characteristic in the tapestry of human experience. Jack's phone buzzed. Text from Axel, we staying in town or riding back? He showed the message to Pops. What do you think? The old man studied the scene. Most of the brothers have 3-hour rides home. Let them go. You're staying anyway, right? Yeah, I'm staying. Then tell them thanks and let them ride. We made our point. Jack typed in the group chat. Mission accomplished, Ruthers. Ride safe. I'm staying to help the family. Anyone who wants to stick around, coordinate with me. Responses flooded in. Diesel, Clutch, Hammer, Raven all confirming they'd stay through the weekend to help with house repairs and whatever else Kate needed. The rest began mounting bikes, preparing for the ride home. Engines fired up in sequence. 70 motorcycles ready to roll. Pops raised his hand one final time. Riders, attention. The formation snapped to focus. Every eye on the old man who'd organized this gathering. Thank you for riding today. Thank you for proving that brotherhood means something. Ride safe. Ride proud. 70 voices. Ride proud. Then they rolled out, two by two, the column reforming for the journey back to Pittsburgh and Billings and Sheridan and all the other places these warriors called home. Jack watched them go, his own Harley staying parked because his home was here now, at least for as long as Ryan needed him. Kate approached as the last bikes disappeared around the corner. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. Just thank you. Thank Pops. He made this happen. Kate looked at the old man, then back at Jack. No, you made this happen by finally showing up, 8 years late. But here now, that counts. Ryan appeared between them, still clutching the flag Pops had given him. His hands moved and Kate translated. Can we go home? I'm tired. They loaded into Jack's truck, the three of them plus Pops, who decided his 78-year-old bones had done enough riding for one day. The drive back to Maple Street was quiet, everyone processing what had just happened. 74 motorcycles had rolled into a small Montana town, and instead of violence or intimidation, they'd created space for healing. At the house, Kate made sandwiches while Ryan retreated to his room to decompress. Pops sat at the kitchen table with Jack, both of them drinking coffee and letting the adrenaline slowly drain. You know this isn't over, right? The old man's voice was gentle but firm. I know. Town showed up today because they were scared or guilty or both. Real change takes longer. Takes consistency. I'm not leaving. Good, because that kid's going to need you next week when the cameras are gone and the guilt has worn off and he's still deaf in a world that doesn't accommodate. Jack nodded, understanding the weight of the commitment he'd made. This wasn't about one dramatic gesture. It was about showing up day after day, week after week, being the constant presence Ryan deserved. Kate returned with sandwiches, set them on the table. You're both welcome to stay tonight. Guest room's empty, and the couch is yours, Jack. The offer settled over them like a blanket. Jack looked at Pops, who shrugged. Beats riding back at my age. These old bones appreciate a soft bed. Then it's settled. Kate's relief was visible. I have tomorrow off for the first time in 3 months. We can actually have breakfast together like a family. Family. The word hung in the air, fragile and hopeful. Jack had been alone so long he'd forgotten what family felt like. But here in this small house with peeling paint and worn furniture, surrounded by Michael's memory and the living family he'd left behind, Jack felt something click into place. This was home now. Not the shop in Pittsburgh with its unfinished projects and unopened bottles. Not the road or the meetings or the brothers he rode with. Home was wherever Ryan needed him to be. Home was keeping a promise, 8 years overdue. They ate sandwiches and talked about next steps. Raven would coordinate supply runs. Diesel had already organized a work party to fix the roof before snow came. Hammer knew a lawyer who'd help navigate disability services Ryan should have been receiving all along. The Brotherhood was stepping up, making good on the commitment to care for their own. Ryan emerged from his room around 5, looking less overwhelmed. His hands moved in signs Jack was getting better at reading. Thank you for today. Jack signed back. You're welcome. We're family. The kids smiled, genuine and unguarded, and in that moment Jack saw Michael. Saw the man who'd saved his life reflected in the son who'd saved his purpose. The circle completing itself in ways neither of them had planned, but both desperately needed. That night, Jack slept on the pull-out couch again. But this time it felt less like exile and more like belonging. The house settled around him, Kate in her room, Ryan in his, Pops in the guest room, snoring loud enough to rattle windows. A family cobbled together from loss and determination and the simple act of showing up. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Monday would come with its own struggles. But tonight, Jack let himself rest in the knowledge that he'd finally kept his promise. He'd shown up for Michael's family. He'd stood with 74 brothers and made a statement about what mattered. And somewhere in the darkness, maybe Michael's ghost finally released its hold. Sunday morning broke clear and cold, sunlight cutting through frost on windows like judgment. Jack woke to the smell of bacon and coffee, sounds of Kate moving in the kitchen. Pops' snoring finally silenced. He lay on the pull-out couch staring at the ceiling, processing yesterday's events through the filter of exhaustion and something that felt dangerously close to hope. 74 motorcycles had rolled through Riverside. The town had witnessed what happened when warriors stood for one of their own. Ryan had received apologies and promises. Kate had seen strangers become allies, and Jack had taken the first real step toward redemption in 8 years. But morning light had a way of exposing the gap between gesture and substance, between a single day's courage and the grinding work of sustained change. His phone showed 6:15. Messages had accumulated overnight. Diesel confirming the work party would arrive Tuesday to start roof repairs. Raven with a spreadsheet of supplies Kate needed. Hammer forwarding contact information for a disability rights attorney. The Brotherhood mobilizing resources the way they'd mobilize bikes, turning sentiment into action. Jack hauled himself upright, joints protesting the pull-out couch's dubious comfort. His back carried the familiar ache of old injuries poorly healed, shrapnel wounds from Syria that doctors said would hurt worse as he aged. 49 felt like 70 some mornings, the accumulated weight of war and guilt, and 8 years of poor sleep grinding him down increment by increment. Kate appeared in the doorway, already dressed despite the early hour. Coffee? Please. She poured him a mug, black the way he preferred, and settled into the armchair that faced the couch. Neither spoke for several minutes. Comfortable silence between people who'd survived their own separate versions of loss. Finally, Kate broke the quiet. What happens now? Jack sipped coffee, considering. Pops rides back today. I stay. Help with whatever needs helping. Be present the way I should have been. And when the novelty wears off, when the town forgets its guilt and Ryan's still deaf and alone, then I'm still here. This isn't about novelty. Kate's eyes searched his face, looking for cracks in the conviction. You know he's getting attached, already talking about you like you're permanent. I am permanent. You said that 8 years ago. At Michael's funeral, you held my hand and promised you'd be there. Then you vanished. The accusation landed clean. No anger in Kate's voice, but the weight of truth made it hit harder. Jack set down the coffee, met her eyes directly. I can't undo that. Can't give you back 8 years or explain away the cowardice except to say I was drowning and I took you both down with me. All I can do is be different now. Show up different. Pretty words, Jack. I've heard pretty words before. Then judge me by actions. Give me a week, a month. However long you need to trust this is real. Kate stood, walked to the window overlooking the front yard where Jack's truck sat next to her aging sedan. When Michael died, Ryan asked me if Daddy was coming back. I told him no. Some people leave and don't return. I think he's been waiting 8 years for you to prove me right. I won't. See that you don't. Because if you break his heart again, I'll break more than your promises. She left to wake Ryan for breakfast, leaving Jack alone with his coffee and the photographs of Michael that covered every surface. The man smiled out from frames, frozen at 36, unaware his death would set in motion 8 years of consequence that culminated in 74 bikers in a town's reckoning. Pops emerged at 7, moving stiff from the guest bed. The old man poured coffee, settled at the kitchen table with the careful movements of someone whose body had been asking for retirement since Korea. Sleep okay? Better than on the road. Age makes a man appreciate real mattresses. They sat in the quiet companionship of veterans who'd seen enough to appreciate silence. Outside, the neighborhood was waking, cars starting, dogs barking, the mundane rhythm of Sunday in a small Montana town that had experienced something extraordinary 24 hours prior. You staying the week? Pop shook his head. Got to get back. Steel Brotherhood's got business that won't wait, but I'll be down every few weeks. Check on things. Make sure you're keeping your word. Don't trust me? The old man smiled. Trust you fine, but accountability keeps a man honest. Plus, I like the kid. Reminds me of soldiers I knew who fought battles nobody else understood. Ryan appeared disheveled from sleep, signing good morning to Jack with more fluency than Jack could reciprocate. Kate translated the questions that followed. What was for breakfast? When was Pops leaving? Would Jack teach him to ride a motorcycle? Standard teenage inquiries delivered through hands instead of voice. The language beautiful in its efficiency. They ate together, the four of them crowded around a table built for two, passing plates and conversation in the overlapping modes of speech and sign. Kate translated when needed, Ryan lip-read what he could, and Jack fumbled through ASL basics while Pops watched with the satisfied expression of someone who'd orchestrated this gathering. After breakfast, Pops prepared for the ride back to Pittsburgh. He packed his small duffel, checked his shovelhead's oil, pulled on the leather vest that carried patches from 7 decades of service and riding. Ryan watched from the porch, clearly disappointed the old man was leaving. Pops approached the kid, moving slow on the bad leg. His hands moved in signs Jack didn't recognize, something private between the Korean War veteran and the teenage son of a man he'd never met but honored anyway. Ryan responded in kind, then hugged Pops with the fierce grip of someone who'd learned not to take goodbyes lightly. The old man turned to Jack. Keep me updated. Text me every few days. I want to know the kid's doing okay. Will do. And Jack, Pops' expression hardened. You have nightmares again, you call me. Don't handle it alone. How'd you know about the nightmares? I'm 78 years old and I've been helping broken soldiers since before you were born. I know the signs. They clasped forearms, the grip that meant brotherhood transcended age and time. Then Pops mounted his shovel head, kicked it to life, and rolled out of the driveway with a wave that might have been salute or goodbye, or both. Jack stood on the porch next to Ryan, watching the old man disappear around the corner. The kid's hands moved. He's good people. Jack signed back. The best. The week that followed established rhythms that felt dangerously close to normal. Jack spent mornings working on Kate's house, replacing rotted siding, fixing the furnace that coughed and wheezed, patching a dozen small failures that accumulated when money was tight and time was scarce. Ryan helped when school allowed, handing tools and learning basic carpentry through demonstration rather than instruction. Afternoons, Jack drove Ryan to Riverside High and waited in the parking lot. The kid had agreed to return to school on Monday, facing down the location of so much previous suffering with the kind of courage Jack recognized from combat. That first day, Ryan had walked through the front doors with shoulders squared and jaw set, prepared for mockery or violence or the casual cruelty of teenagers who'd seen him broken on camera. Instead, something unexpected happened. Students approached with apologies. Some genuine, seeking forgiveness. Others performative, conscious of watching teachers in the new zero-tolerance policy. But enough sincerity existed that Ryan came back to Jack's truck that first afternoon with cautious optimism replacing dread. By Wednesday, 3 students had asked Ryan to teach them ASL. By Friday, the school's ASL club had 7 members where previously it had 0. Small victories, but they accumulated like interest, building towards something that might eventually resemble inclusion. Evenings belonged to the 3 of them, Jack, Kate, and Ryan, eating dinner together and navigating the strange territory of becoming a family. Kate worked fewer doubles, the financial pressure easing as Jack contributed to rent and groceries from savings he'd been hoarding for no particular purpose. They fell into domestic patterns. Jack cooked on Tuesdays, Kate on Thursdays, pizza on Saturdays. Ryan did dishes, Jack dried, Kate supervised while pretending not to. The nightmares came less frequently. Jack still woke gasping some nights, Michael's blood on his hands and screams in his throat. But Ryan's presence down the hall and Kate's coffee in the morning and the grinding work of keeping promises created ballast against the darkness. Purpose, he was learning, was better than any medication the VA had prescribed. Tyler Brennan became a ghost haunting the margins. Jack saw him twice that first week. Once at the grocery store, the kid ducking down an aisle to avoid eye contact. Once at a stoplight, Tyler's Jeep 2 cars ahead. Each time, Jack felt rage kindle in his chest, the desire to make the punk hurt still simmering beneath the surface discipline. But he swallowed it down, remembering Pops' words about honor and Michael's probable wishes. Ryan reported that Tyler had approached him at school, attempting conversation that was halting and awkward and probably genuine. The quarterback had lost his starting position, suspended from the team pending completion of community service hours. His friends had mostly abandoned him, fair weather allies discovering that association with the school's pariah carried social cost. Tyler was experiencing a fraction of the isolation he'd inflicted on Ryan, and apparently it was teaching him something about perspective. 2 weeks after the ride, Robert Brennan appeared at Kate's door. Jack answered the knock to find the colonel in civilian clothes, no uniform to hide behind, standing on the porch with the rigid posture of a man facing execution. His face showed the particular exhaustion of someone who'd stopped sleeping well, eyes carrying weight that hadn't been there in the photos Jack had seen. "Mr. Callahan, is Mrs. Hayes available?" Jack's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "To apologize. Properly. Not in front of cameras or crowds, just a man admitting he failed another man's family." Kate appeared behind Jack, recognition flickering across her face. "Colonel Brennan, ma'am, I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I'm asking anyway, please." Kate studied him the way nurses studied patients, assessing for deception or genuine distress. Finally, she stepped aside. 5 minutes. They sat in the living room, that shrine to Michael's memory, Robert's gaze catching on the flag and photographs and the uniform hung in its frame. Jack positioned himself between the colonel and Kate, protective stance that probably wasn't subtle, but he didn't particularly care about subtlety. Robert spoke with the clipped precision of military briefing. "In 2002, I served with your husband in Afghanistan. He was a better soldier than me, better leader, better man. I was jealous, so I sabotaged his career." Kate's expression didn't change. "I know. Michael told me years ago." Robert's composure cracked. "He told you?" "He said you'd filed false reports. Cost him a promotion that would have meant better pay, better benefits for our family. He also said he'd forgiven you because holding grudges was poison." The colonel's hand shook. "I never apologized. Never made it right. Then in 2003, Fallujah, my mistake on patrol, got our squad pinned down. Your husband took a bullet saving me. Still saved me after what I'd done." Jack's rage crystallized into something sharp. "And you repaid that sacrifice by teaching your son to be a bully." Robert flinched. "Yes, I taught Tyler that strength meant dominance, that showing vulnerability was weakness, that the world rewarded the ruthless and punished the soft. All the toxic lessons my own father taught me, passed down like genetic disease." Kate's voice was ice. "Why are you here, Colonel?" "To confess, to accept whatever judgment you deem appropriate, and to tell you that I'm getting help. Tyler and I started family therapy. I'm working with a VA counselor on my own issues. I can't undo the harm I caused your husband or your son, but I can try to be different going forward." Jack studied the man, looking for cracks in the facade, evidence of performance rather than genuine contrition. But Robert's hands kept shaking and his eyes kept filling, and the particular shame radiating off him felt too raw to be manufactured. Kate stood, walked to Michael's flag, touched the glass covering it. "My husband believed people could change if they chose to. I'm less optimistic. But he'd want me to give you the chance he gave you all those years ago." Robert stood. "Thank you. That's more grace than I deserve. One condition." "Anything. Make sure Tyler keeps his word, not just to Ryan, but to whoever else he's hurt. Real change, not just damage control, until the heat dies down. You have my word." Kate's expression hardened. "Your word doesn't mean much to me, Colonel, but I'll accept it provisionally. Prove me wrong about trusting you." After Robert left, Kate stood at the window watching his car disappear down Maple Street. Jack approached carefully, uncertain what she needed. "You believe him?" Kate shrugged. "I believe he's scared. Whether that translates to actual change remains to be seen. But Michael would have given him the chance. So I will too. You're more forgiving than I'd be. I've had 8 years to practice forgiveness, Jack, starting with forgiving you for abandoning us." The words stung, but Jack absorbed them, standing still. "You forgive me yet?" Kate turned, studied his face. "Ask me in 6 months. If you're still here, still showing up, still keeping your promises to Ryan, then maybe." Fair enough. Spring arrived gradually in Montana, winter loosening its grip degree by degree. Snow melted to mud, mud dried to dirt, and the work party Diesel had organized descended on Kate's house with tools and materials and the kind of focused energy that came from veterans who'd learned to build as well as destroy. Over one weekend in March, 12 bikers replaced the entire roof, fixed the sagging porch, repainted the exterior in fresh blue that made the house look almost new. Kate cried watching these rough men work with surprising gentleness, each nail driven with care, each board measured precise. They refused payment, accepting only coffee and sandwiches and the knowledge they were taking care of family. Ryan watched too, learning through observation the kind of brotherhood that transcended blood. Diesel taught him to use a nail gun. Clutch showed him how to read a level. Hammer, working from his wheelchair, demonstrated finished carpentry that required precision rather than mobility. The kid absorbed it all, these lessons in competence and community that school had never provided. By April, the house no longer looked like poverty's victim, but a home maintained by people who cared. Neighbors noticed, commenting to Kate about the transformation, asking who the men were who'd done the work. Word spread that these were Michael's brothers in arms, veterans honoring a fallen soldier by caring for his widow and son. The story grew with each telling, mythology replacing fact, but the core remained true. Ryan's social situation stabilized into something approaching acceptance. The ASL club had grown to 15 students, meeting twice weekly to learn sign language, and more importantly, to normalize difference. Tyler attended every session, his community service hours accumulating alongside something that might have been genuine friendship. The two teenagers weren't close, probably never would be, but they'd achieved détente built on mutual understanding of how badly they'd both handled their respective struggles. Jack marked 90 days sober in late April, though he'd stopped counting daily and started measuring in weeks. The bottle of Jim Beam still sat in his truck's cup holder, unopened. No longer temptation, but reminder. He'd carried it from Pittsburgh to Riverside to prove he could resist, and now it stayed because throwing it away felt like declaring victory before the battle ended. Kate noticed one evening when Jack was fixing dinner and she was grading nursing school applications at the kitchen table. "How long has it been since I drank?" "Yeah, 3 years, 4 months, 12 days. Give or take. That's specific. Sobriety makes you count. The days you don't drink stack up like evidence you're maybe worth saving it after all." Kate set down her pen. "You think you weren't worth saving?" Jack stirred pasta sauce, kept his eyes on the pot. "Michael died so I could live. Then I spent 8 years wasting that gift, drinking and hiding and building motorcycles I never finished. Pretty sure that's the definition of wasted life. And now I'm trying to earn what he gave me. Show up for his kid, keep my promises, be someone he'd recognize." Kate stood, moved beside him at the stove. "Michael didn't save you because he thought you'd be perfect, Jack. He saved you because you were worth saving. Flaws and all." The words hit harder than accusations. Jack blinked against unexpected tears, focused on stirring sauce that didn't need stirring. Ryan appeared in the doorway, signing that he'd finished homework and could he please learn to ride Jack's motorcycle now that the weather was decent. The moment broke, Kate laughing at her son's persistence. Jack explaining again why 16 was too young for highway speeds. Domestic normalcy swallowing the heavy conversation like it had never happened. May brought Riverside High's spring assembly and an announcement that surprised everyone. The school was renaming its scholarship program the Lieutenant Michael J. Hayes Memorial Scholarship, awarded annually to a student overcoming significant obstacles. Ryan accepted the first award, $5,000 toward college, standing on stage while the student body applauded, and Jack fought to keep his composure in the audience. Tyler Brennan stood and applauded longer than anyone else, that gesture visible enough that even Ryan, who couldn't hear the noise, saw it and nodded acknowledgement. After the assembly, Principal Miller approached Jack in the parking lot. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What made you come back? After 8 years, what changed?" Jack watched Ryan talking with other students, animated conversation conducted through sign and facial expression, and the particular fluency of teenagers communicating despite language barriers. "I saw a video of him crying and realized I'd been lying to myself, telling myself he didn't need me when the truth was I was too scared to need him." "Scared of what?" "Of failing again. Of proving I wasn't worth Michael's sacrifice." But it turns out showing up scared is still showing up. Miller nodded. I'm glad you did. He's a different kid now. Still quiet, still struggling, but there's light in him that wasn't there before. That's all Kate. All Ryan. I'm just trying not to screw it up. Well, keep not screwing it up. The school is better for having you around too. 6 months after 74 motorcycles rolled into Riverside, the town organized its first annual Michael Hayes Memorial Day. What started as Kate's suggestion to honor her husband's sacrifice expanded into a community event. Morning ceremony at the cemetery, afternoon fair with proceeds benefiting the scholarship fund, evening ASL showcase where students demonstrated what they'd learned. Jack stood at Michael's grave with Kate and Ryan, watching townspeople gather to pay respects to a man many had never met, but all now claimed to honor. The irony wasn't lost on him. Michael had lived here for years, and the town had barely acknowledged his family's struggle. One viral video and a motorcycle ride later, suddenly everyone wanted to celebrate his legacy. But cynicism felt petty when Ryan was smiling, when Kate looked less exhausted than she had in years, when genuine change was happening, even if the catalyst had been shame as much as nobility. Pops appeared beside Jack, the old man having ridden down for the occasion. Good turnout. Michael would have hated the attention, probably, but he'd have loved seeing his kid happy. They stood in silence, two veterans flanking a grave, honoring a third who died too young doing exactly what soldiers were supposed to do. The inscription read simply, Lieutenant Michael J. Hayes, 1980 to 2016, beloved husband, father, hero. Jack placed his hand on the headstone, cold granite under his palm. I kept my promise, brother. Took me 8 years, but I got there. Ryan's okay. Kate's okay. They're going to be okay. Pops's cane tapped the ground. You're okay too, Jack. Don't forget that part. Working on it. The ceremony started, Principal Miller speaking about Michael's service, Kate sharing memories of her husband, Ryan presenting the first scholarship to a deaf student from a neighboring district, speeches and tears and the awkward communal processing of loss that defined memorial services everywhere. Afterward, the fair consumed the afternoon, games and food vendors and a dunk tank where Tyler Brennan volunteered to sit, raising money while enduring the particular joy of watching people pay for the chance to drop him into cold water. The kid took it with grace, laughing when he fell, climbing back onto the platform again and again. Redemption through public humiliation, karmic balance restoring itself degree by degree. Evening brought the ASL showcase, 15 students performing songs and poems and dramatic readings entirely through sign. Ryan served as instructor and judge, his expertise finally valued rather than ignored. Jack watched from the audience, Kate beside him, both of them witnessing transformation neither had dared hope for 6 months ago. You staying the night? Kate's question came as the showcase ended, families filtering out into the spring evening. Jack had been driving back to Pittsburgh most weekends, maintaining his shop and the fiction that he still lived there. But the trips had grown less frequent as Riverside became more home than the place he'd hidden for 8 years. If that's okay, the guest room's yours if you want it. Couch is getting old. Guest room meant permanence, meant acknowledging he'd been sleeping on that pullout for half a year, and maybe it was time to admit this was where he lived now. Jack accepted with the gravity the offer deserved. That night, sleeping in an actual bed in Michael's house, Jack dreamed for the first time in months. Not nightmares, but memory. Syria before everything went wrong. Him and Michael working on a Humvee's transmission, talking about nothing important, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Michael alive and whole and planning for a future he'd never get. Jack woke with tears on his face, but not the usual gasping panic. Just grief, clean and honest, the kind that acknowledged loss without being destroyed by it. He lay in the dark, listening to the house settle around him. Kate's breathing from down the hall, Ryan's occasional movement, the familiar creaks of wood and foundation, and felt something like peace. A year after the ride, Riverside hosted its second annual Michael Hayes Memorial Day. Attendance doubled from the previous year. The scholarship fund had grown to $20,000 through community donations and a fundraiser the Steel Brotherhood organized. Ryan had been accepted to Montana State with a full ride, planning to study graphic design and maybe possibly find the kind of future his father had wanted for him. Jack stood at the cemetery again, this time with 70 bikers who'd ridden in for the occasion. Not as demonstration, but as family gathering. Brothers returning to honor one of their own and check on the kid they'd claimed as nephew or little brother or son, depending on the rider's age and temperament. Pops, now 79 and still riding despite doctors' protests, led the ceremony. Brief words about Michael, longer words about what his sacrifice had meant and continued to mean. Then silence. 70 fists raised in salute while the town watched and remembered. Ryan placed fresh flowers on his father's grave, the annual ritual he'd established. Kate stood beside her son, Jack on her other side, the three of them forming a unit that had grown organic through sustained presence rather than dramatic gesture. After the ceremony, Ryan pulled Jack aside. His hands moved in fluid sign, Jack understanding without needing translation. "Thank you for keeping your promise. I know it was hard." Jack signed back, still clumsy but functional. "You made it easy. You're your father's son, strong and brave and better than you know. Will you teach me to ride? For real this time?" Jack laughed. "You're 18 in 2 months. Get your license, and we'll talk." The kid grinned. That expression transforming his face the way it had since Jack first showed up on this doorstep a year ago, scared and guilty, and determined to finally do right. Ryan was different now, confident where he'd been invisible, included where he'd been isolated, planning for futures that extended beyond surviving each day. The bullied kid crying in a parking lot had become a young man preparing for college and life and the particular challenges he'd face with grace his father would have recognized. That evening, Jack rode with the brothers back toward Pittsburgh, the column of motorcycles smaller than last year but no less meaningful. They stopped at Murphy's Tavern for church, the informal gathering where business was conducted and brotherhood was reaffirmed. Diesel raised a glass. To Michael Hayes, and to Callahan for keeping his word. 70 voices. To Michael. Jack accepted the toast, drinking water while others drank beer. Sobriety maintained not through white-knuckle resistance, but through the steady accumulation of days and purpose. 4 years now, 1,460 days of choosing to stay present rather than checking out. After church, he rode back to Riverside alone, the highway empty under stars that Michael would never see. Jack thought about the 8 years he'd wasted, the promises broken and the family abandoned, and all the ways he'd failed the man who'd died for him. But he also thought about the year just past, about Ryan's smile and Kate's gradual trust and the house that was home now in ways his shop had never been. He pulled into the driveway at 11, killed the engine, sat for a moment in the quiet. Lights were on inside, Kate waiting up despite the late hour, the habit she'd developed of not sleeping until Jack was home safe. He climbed off the bike, stretched muscles sore from the ride, and walked to the door that opened before he could knock. Kate stood silhouetted in the doorway. "Good ride, good ride. Brothers send their love." She stepped aside to let him in, and Jack entered the house that held Michael's memory and Michael's family and Jack's second chance. The door closed behind him, shutting out the Montana night and the ghosts that had haunted him for so long. In the living room, Michael's photograph smiled from its frame, frozen at 36, unaware of everything that would follow his death. Jack stopped in front of it, placed his hand on the glass the way he did most nights. "I'm still here, brother. Still keeping my word. Still showing up for them." The photograph didn't answer, but Jack didn't need it to. He knew what Michael would say if he could speak. "Keep going, keep trying, keep being the man I believed you could be." Jack intended to do exactly that. For as long as Ryan needed him, for as long as Kate would let him stay, for as long as breath remained in lungs that should have stopped in Syria, but didn't because a better man had chosen sacrifice over survival. The last promise was kept, and in keeping it, Jack had finally learned to live.